guys, it's D to the B here. And today I'm going to be talking about Venom: The Last Dance. I saw this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I would finally review it since I did rewatch the movie not too long ago with my friend Prince Productions. So I'm willing to give my thoughts about it. So the movie opens up with Null and his imprisonment on the symbiote homeworld, and Null is talking to these creatures of his that he created to hunt down his creations, which would be Venom. So the creatures that he sends go through portals to find something that Venom has, which we'll get into. And that's the beginning of the movie. Then the second opening to the movie is where Spider-Man No Way Home had left off. And, Eddie Brock was talking to some guy at the bar. And he was basically making fun of the concept of Thanos. And then Venom said that Eddie's too drunk. And then Venom opens a portal through the multiverse. And this is where we already have a problem. So apparently they retcons this. Because in No Way Home, at the end of the film, Venom and Eddie get transported back to their universe. The same way, keep in mind, that the other villains of Spider-Man disappeared to. They faded the exact same way in the original film. But for some reason, Sony changed this. Because, why not? You couldn't have just kept the opening the same and then add your new stuff. Because this is just going to become confusing. And also, I hate retcons to things. It is very rare when you can create a good retcon. And to me, a good retcon is when you manage to keep the same story element, but establish it in a different way without entirely phasing out the previously established. Apparently Andor did this right, but cares about Andor. Anyway, continuing on, Eddie and Venom are in their universe where their bar guy is completely different. And Venom's like, "Yay, I'm so sick of the multiverse." And I'll have to give the movie credit, that was actually pretty funny. And it actually felt natural, unlike Deadpool and Wolverine. As much as those jokes were funny, you can kind of tell they were forced. I still appreciate them, but jeez. Anyway, Venom takes control of Eddie's body to make a cocktail, where the bartender is totally freaked out by this and leaves the room. Then a news report comes in where reportedly Eddie is still missing and the officer guy from the previous two movies is now dead. And Venom tells Eddie that they're basically on the run now and they need to get out of the area. They plan to go to New York. So they begin to head off. But then, of course, on their way there, they run into a gang which has captured a bunch of these dogs. And we get a cool action sequence with the gang, with Venom and Eddie just taking them all on. And then ending off with Venom biting all their heads off. And then, one of the dogs has Eddie's shoe because it fell off, and Eddie tries to get away from the dog and it breaks. I'm like, I don't think Crocs are that vulnerable or would break that easily, but I haven't worn a pair of Crocs in a long time. Last time I wore Crocs was when I was a kid and they were Shrek ones. I sure did love those Shrek Crocs. But anyway, continuing on, Eddie then steals shoes from one of the gang members, which is like cowboy boots basically, and the dogs are free, and then the creatures from Null's prison comes into the scene when the dogs are escaping, and you would think they would eat the dogs, but thank goodness they didn't. We then transition back to the bar that Eddie and Venom were at, where there was a piece of Venom that was left behind, and the guy was going to touch it, but then the military soldier captured it quickly, and also we get to see the commander of this movie, who is, funny enough, played by the same guy who plays Mordo from Doctor Strange, which in this movie his character is named Stickland, and he is trying to prevent the symbiotes from coming, and also orders his soldiers to take the guy that almost got exposed to the symbiote. And then we transition to this lady who is sleeping, and this lady basically is having a flashback of her traumatic event where she and her brother were in the storm and they were running back to wherever or something like that, and they both get struck by lightning. She somehow survives, but her brother dies for some reason, and this really has no effect to the plot, like, whatsoever. I don't know why they included this, and this is the character of Dr. Payne, which is weird because this is gonna make some people mad, including myself. I did some research into the character of Dr. Payne, or should I say, Dr. Payne. And the character of Dr. Payne, from what I searched, is sadistic psychiatrist who tortures, experiments on, and murders his patients in a brutal ways in an effort to understand the nature of pain, suffering, something he is incapable of feeling. Now, you're probably wondering, D the B, if you're one of the viewers who didn't go see this movie, does this at least gender-swapped character, yes, this is a gender-swapped character, by the way, able to do the same things that this character is? No. She has nothing to do with the same things that this character is. So not only did they gender swap this character, but also they didn't even carry any of those traits from that version to this one. Do you want to know what basically her thing is? She wants to understand aliens and outer space beings. And yes, I know they're the same thing, but because of her experience surviving the lightning and her brother didn't, she wants to know more about extraterrestrials. And I'm not even kidding. This legit has nothing to do with the plot of this movie. It's just there, and we'll get back to her. She wakes up from her traumatic event, and she wakes up the next morning. And we also find out that Area 51 is being shut down, and the public get to see what Area 51 has been doing this whole time. And then we go inside of Area 51, where there's a bunch of symbiotes, and one of the hosts of the symbiotes, pretty much the only symbiote with a host, is the officer guy who previously had died. So this does get a bit interesting later, but not really at the same time. We'll get back to it. They try communicating with the symbiote inside the officer guy, but they're not completely successful at first. Like, they legit try to get as much information out, and the symbiote says he can see the future, or technically the symbiote speaking through the officer guy that he can see the future. Then we get flashes of Null earlier sending his beasts, yada yada. Then we transition to a plane where we can see the outside Eddie and Venom are connected to. And then Venom goes in complete control. But then the creature from earlier then spots where Venom is and also lands on top of the plane. And Venom and Eddie have to fight this creature, which we get a cool action shot, but then eventually the creature gets destroyed by the engine of the plane, and Venom then turns back into Eddie Brock, or goes in hiding, and once they land on the surface, where of course Eddie loses his shoes again, and Venom explains that the creature that was hunting them down is from their creator, Null, and how the symbiotes work together to imprison their creator, Null. And about when Eddie was going to say the name of Null, Venom stopped him, which probably was a good decision. So then we get the impression that Null is this feared being of the symbiotes, kind of like how in the Wizards of Harry Potter, Voldemort is like the most fiercest wizard in the wizarding world until Harry Potter defeats him in the Deathly Hallows. But anyway, continuing on, Eddie and Venom go walking, and Venom's also explaining the concept of a cortex, which is the main McGuffin of this movie, what the villain Null is after. So Venom explains that when a person dies, a symbiote can bring that host back to life, and the cortex will form in their body, and the cortex lives as long as they both live. If one of them dies, the cortex is gone. And Eddie's like, oh, thank goodness we don't have that. And then Venom's like, well, except that one time you died, which I'm pretty sure was the first Venom movie. And Eddie's like, oh. So yeah. And then also Venom explains he's going to have to remain incognito so the creature doesn't detect the cortex, which I forgot to mention earlier. The creature put itself back together after being sliced into pieces. And we continue them walking through the desert, where they find a horse, and Eddie's like, can you take control of that horse? And Venom's like, let's see and find out. Eddie tries talking to the horse calmly, and then Venom takes control of the horse, and they do the whole symbiote horse thing from the trailers, which was actually pretty cool. I would not mind an action figure of this horse, to be honest. Then we go back to the military base, or Area 51, where Sticklin is saying that they're not finding a safe haven, they're more trying to find a new world to conquer. And Payne is like, you watch too many alien movies, and they walk down with all the symbiotes, and like, have I? And there's just a bunch of symbiotes. Then we also transition to Eddie and Venom horse, and there's a military vehicle shooting at the horse, which freaks out the actual horse, and Venom disconnects from the horse. The military soldiers begin to follow them. They both go in the water, which then Venom is separated from Eddie for a bit to distract them, where Venom is then caught by a net. Eddie also finds off this soldier who tries to kill him in the water, but then Eddie points the gun to the soldier, and the soldier dies in the water. Then Venom gets out of the net, takes over a fish, then jumps out of the water, takes control of a frog, and then as Eddie and another soldier are about to head off of a waterfall, Venom untakes control of the frog and goes to Eddie. And Eddie's like, what about the thing? And Venom's like, it's more, I have to make sure you stay alive. And then the creature detects them, and as they go off the waterfall, they survive, and we see Sticklin, he's upset. Then we go back to Eddie and Venom, and Eddie's basically saying, not only we have this creature after us, the military operatives are after us now, and he had to kill somebody. And they have a whole bickerment about how they met. Then we go back to the Area 51, where Payne and Sadie, or Christmas as she's nicknamed in the movie, they try communicating with the other symbiote, where the symbiote takes full control. And I have no idea who this freaking symbiote is. Unfortunately, a problem with this movie is they didn't really give the other symbiotes a chance to be characters, not even reveal their names. We have to take some lucky guesses on which character is which, and who knows, because they don't really say their names, unfortunately. Anyway, continuing on, the mysterious symbiote is saying that the creatures and Null are after Venom because of a cortex, which if the cortex gets to Null, which is a detail I forgot to mention earlier, the cortex can set Null free from his prison and he can wreak havoc to the universe. And Sticklin is like, then we kill them. And then we transition back to Eddie and Venom, where they meet this family, which are a bunch of alien nut jobs, and they're basically going to Area 51, and Eddie hitches a ride with them, and while they're driving, they do a whole sing-along, which I'll admit, the sing-along was pretty good, and I'll say it, they probably weren't, but they definitely showed a lot of traits. For Hippies, they were actually pretty good. They're probably the first Hippies characters that I actually like in cinema. They were actually pretty enjoyable, in my personal opinion. We then go to night where the kid of the hippie family, Leaf, is scared of meeting an alien, and Eddie's like, aliens aren't real, to make the kid feel better. And then Leaf also gives Eddie this chocolate bar and says that a friend of his likes chocolate. And once Eddie is dropped off by the hippies and also given new shoes, like those Velcro sandals or something like that, as soon as they leave, Venom eats the chocolate, and then they start heading for a fancy hotel. And also Venom says that he wants to see the Statue of Liberty and a Broadway show about Statue of Liberty. And he says that's surprising since I know you hate musicals. And then Eddie and Venom try going into the fancy hotel, but they're turned down because of a dress code. Then they go by a guy to get a disguise after Venom knocked out the ballet of the hotel. And unfortunately, the guy was pissing at the same time and pissed on his new shoes. And then Venom knocked out the guy, and then they took his suit. And Eddie sent the cops towards that one guy's direction, and they slip into the hotel where immediately Venom wants to gamble, which I also forgot. The hippie man, I'm going to call him the hippie man, gives... Oh, Martin. Sorry, I'm looking at the cast at the same time. Martin also gives them money, which of course Venom spends it all, and then from the distance, they meet Mrs. Chen from the first two Venom movies. Apparently she's gambling and rich since the last time we saw her. And they go to her hotel room. And also, back in Area 51, Stickland presents a program or tells to prepare for that certain program. Then we see the hippie van for a little bit. Then we also go back to the hotel where Chen is prompting Venom to dance, and Venom takes complete control of Eddie to dance, which of course gets the creature's attention, Eddie was pretty much telling Venom not to do it, even though Venom was the person who said that he had to stay in his regular mode. And Eddie's just surprised with how much of the dancing moves they're getting right. Like, when did you have time to practice this? Which is a good question. And then the creature crashes into the roof. Venom turns back into Eddie, and the creature leaves because there is no cortex, or at least it doesn't see the cortex. And then the military men capture Eddie and Venom, but they separate them first. And then we go to Area 51, where Eddie wakes up without Venom in him, and also Venom is deteriorating while he's separated from Eddie. Payne is communicating with Eddie, which I also forgot to mention, the hippie family is sneaking into Area 51 to see an alien if they can. And also before Payne talks to Eddie, the officer guy from the previous Venom movie, and also the mysterious symbiote are talking, and they're talking about how they need the key, and they are the only ones who can stop Null from returning. Also tells him that there is a bunch of other symbiotes that can help him in his quest to stop the creatures from getting the cortex. Stickland then comes in after Eddie chats with Payne, and of course Stickland, doing the right thing, he's probably the one in the right in this movie. He says that the only way to prevent from Null from coming is killing one of them. So he shoots Eddie, and before that he says he's also taking control of the operation. But then it turns out that Sadie, or Christmas Girl, had Venom the whole time, and Venom automatically took control of Eddie again to keep the cortex alive. And Venom said, "Big mistake." And then we get... But at the same time, the creature comes in and starts causing chaos in there. And then they begin to run through the building where the other symbiotes are. And basically, after Venom and Eddie escape from the creature, the Chief and the mysterious symbiote die, which, knowing the fact that the Chief was found dead, impaled, that was just a waste of a cortex, which we'll get to that near the end of the movie. I do have a bit of a problem with this cortex plotline. So then, as I said, they go to the other area where the creature is fighting the military soldiers because they fired at it, which kills a bunch of them. There's even this one guy who got stabbed, but then one of the symbiotes broke free and took control. Hey, there's another cortex that you can use. And the symbiotes are taking control, and most of these we don't even know. I think there's only like 2 that we know the identity of through this whole movie. And the symbiotes work together to take on the creature. And of course, Stickland fires at one of them and kills one of the symbiotes that was trying to help. And I think it's Lasher which is a female in this universe. Lasher's like, he was trying to help, we're not the bad guys. And then the leftover symbiotes try fighting. A few of them die. There's like this cool fire one that was there. He died. And we continue on all the way to outside where the hippie family see the symbiotes. And the Venom and Eddie tries to help the hippie family escape from the area, but then also fighting the creature at the same time. They manage to help them escape. The symbiotes keep fighting. Eventually, at some point, Lasher dies because Lasher takes control of Christmas Girl, which was disappointing. And then at some point, we get flashes of Lightning Girl. That's why I'm going to call Payne. She's Lightning Girl now. And she's just running, and we're getting flashbacks of her past. The second time I watched, it's like, nobody cares, with my friend Prince Productions. And then at some point, she breaks the canister that she had, and we get revealed to another symbiote, which I do know the name thanks to my friend, named Agony, which is another female symbiote. And Agony helps get the people out of there, mostly Christmas Girl, and apparently they got her powers wrong. I forget what Agony's powers are in the comics, but it is not super speed. That apparently is a different symbiote, from what I can tell. And then, at some point, Stickling got stabbed, and then Eddie and Venom are, like, hiding from the creature, but then Venom takes full control and fights the creature, and also forgot to mention there's more creatures that were summoned to the final battle, and Venom basically takes control of them all and takes them to the acid machine. They melted a vehicle with it earlier in the movie, and Stickland, with the assistance of one of the symbiotes, it was Venom that helped Stickland activate the machine to destroy it, and Venom and the creatures are now destroyed. Null was upset, and also before Venom was destroyed, Venom said that they would meet again, and then after Venom and the creatures are destroyed, Eddie wakes up saying that he had a terrible nightmare and was repeatedly calling Venom, and the military general's like, he's not coming back, and Eddie's like, I need him, and the military guy's like, you're free to do whatever you want now, your record's been cleared of everything. And then we see Eddie just walking away, sad as he's remembering. The movie ends with him looking at the Statue of Liberty, and then after that, we get two end credit scenes. One with Null. Null's like, your champion is now dead, and I have awakened, and you will watch as your world falls. And then the second end credits scene is the one bar guy that was taken by the military escapes Area 51, and that's Venom: The Last Dance, pretty much. Wow. That was a movie. So personally, this movie was enjoyable for the most part. I think it's an improvement over Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Venom: Let There Be Carnage was alright of a movie. I felt like it was lacking in certain story elements, and especially, I can agree with some people, it was just basically repeating the same plot line from the first Venom movie. Now, people are saying that this is like the best Venom movie, or at least the people who like the Venom movies. I think that's a little much. Like, I think it's better than Venom: Let There Be Carnage, but it's not the best Venom movie in general. This movie has a couple problems. And I like to talk about the two main problems that I noticed throughout the movie that bugged me the most. Let's start with the Cortex plotline. It is an interesting concept. If a character dies and a symbiote takes over, it has a linked device that keeps them alive, and if one of them dies, the Cortex is gone. And also this thing being able to free Null. It's a cool concept, but when you think about the rest of the movie and seeing other people with the same thing happening to them, mostly Officer Guy and that one fat guy who got stabbed, those were two Cortexes that Null could have taken from the symbiotes. Like, the creatures didn't have to go specifically after Venom. There were other symbiotes that they could have gotten the Cortex from. Like the Officer Guy, for example. The Officer Guy was literally fighting the creature. As soon as the symbiote turned on for Officer Guy, the creature should have seen it and sent it back to Null to have his freedom, but no, it destroys the symbiote and the Officer Guy instead. And then the same thing with the other character who died. Same thing happened. Like, there were other Cortexes being formed, but they were just after Venom for some reason. I know Venom is the main lead of this movie, but if there's clearly other Cortexes, wouldn't it make more sense to take the Cortex of a person that is closer to you than a person that's running away from you? Wouldn't that make more sense? Also, another plot point I actually have an issue with is the symbiotes themselves. I love that they extended themselves even further with the symbiotes. I like how they introduced the lore of the symbiotes, which was something I recently learned from the internet, learning about the creator Null. Like, it was so interesting. But unfortunately, a lot of these symbiotes, you don't even know the name to. Like, there's a few here and there, like, oh yeah, that's that character, that's that character, that's that character. Comic book fans are gonna know who they are. I felt like for a general audience, you could have at least had them express their names of who they are. And then also comic book fans could be like, oh hey, it's that character. Because some of them don't even look entirely accurate to how the characters are supposed to be. Like Lasher, for example. Lasher is a female in this universe, even though there are already female symbiotes. I'm looking at Scream, which Scream would have probably been nice to have in this movie, but oh well, we're not getting that. We get Agony instead, fine. And also a gender swapped Lasher, which just have Lasher control a male, and it's technically not gender swapping because Venom 1 did establish that the voices do change depending on who is taking control of, or who Venom is taking control, or any symbiote is taking control of, if that makes any sense. It's just those two things bother me so much about this movie. But I would say the movie is still fun, and the people who like the Venom movies are most likely going to enjoy this film. The Venom haters, probably not, because it shares a lot of the same issues of the previous Venom movies that people don't like. Like, for example, Venom doesn't get his Spider-Man symbol, and Venom is still somewhat of an anti-hero, and pretty much everything's about the same, except the stakes to an extent. But besides that, I think the movie is pretty enjoyable. I have to give it probably a 6 out of 10, to be honest. Like, the only reason it's not higher is because of these problems. And well, that's it for the Venom trilogy. I've basically reviewed each Venom movie. Who knows? Maybe if I don't like my previous Venom reviews, I'll go back, rewatch them, re-review them, so then they're as nice as this review. But anyway, how did you guys feel about Venom: The Last Dance? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you not care for it and didn't watch the movie, instead watch this review? Tell me in the comments, and have a nice day, everyone.